Okay, if you're like simply justifying or facing any kind of inflation or kind of a deflation kind of economy or stagnant economy, and if you're not feeling like any kind of slowdowns in the kind of economy we're having today, and you're finding yourself in a sector that I would find to say like everything is doing great, I just want to congratulate you and say that you're among the 2% or the 1% that never feel the chaos that has taken place in this today's economy, or how things are likely to be heading down in kind of today's economy. We should try to understand that. To most of us, we try to understand like today our purchasing power is heading down and down. If you don't understand how your purchasing power goes down, I'm gonna give you an example. Just look at the prices. For example, if you bought let's say an ice cream for $10 yesterday, and today you're gonna find it for $11. That means that ice cream went for almost by up, let's say by 1%. Okay, that means every day your purchasing power is likely to be heading down. It doesn't really come in by the terms of pricing. You should also try to look at it in terms of printing money and how money is made. See, whenever the Fed comes up and try to inject money in the economy, the dollar you had yesterday is going to be finding itself devalued. If you possess a good of a $1, and today you find it for $1.01, that means that $1 you had today is getting devalued. That means you need more dollars to access such a kind of a good. We should try to look at today's, for example, today's U.S. Consumer Price Index. If you're thinking like the U.S. Consumer Price Index is fair according to the U.S. economy and how things are going down, I will highly recommend you think again and really look into everything and how the things look. Just look at. Don't you ask yourself, okay, if the economy is doing bad, why is the stock market high? If the economy is doing bad, why are gold prices going high? For many of us in context, we may not try to understand why the stock market is doing so well, and why is it. In simple terms, I like calling it overvalued, because always and always you have to accept it, like it or not. Sometimes, most of the times, the stock market is highly overvalued. Okay, it's like a kind of a piece that we try to understand that today's stock market is kind of. I don't want to mess up things like to say I shouldn't be investing in the stock market. I'm not here to give you advice either to invest or not to invest in the stock market, but I'm just here to give you a clear picture on how things are likely to be doing. If you look at the stock market, if you look at how gold prices are going, I'm gonna simply look at gold. Let me leave the stock market behind. Let's look at gold. And the way gold prices are going, as I speak of right now, gold is likely to be heading for almost, we should be saying for around, if today or not this week, it's likely to hit over 4,000 US dollars per ounce. For context, for those who don't understand why gold prices are getting high, you should try to understand whenever you see gold prices going high, just know central banks are purchasing more gold other than they should be holding on the fiat currency. When I speak of the fiat currency, I mean the paper currency. That means the dollar and the other currencies. But whenever you find the stock market holding more gold than dollars, that means there's skepticality, or the economy is in kind of a skeptical mode. Like nobody trusts where it's heading to. This brings me to what we look at the US debt in simple terms. If you look at the US debt and how it's looking as of today and how it's heading to, it keeps you concerned, because today the US cannot spend 2 months without almost adding $1 trillion on its US debt. And the way it's looking and the way they act like they're trying to find a solution, for those who don't understand US debt and who does it, who is it concerned to, I would say, because we all use the US currency globally, well, it belongs to us. I mean, we have to pay it global, because if you in any access for the US, if you're using the US dollars in any way, you find yourself using here and there, you're behind that debt. You have to pay for it. I mean, in simple terms, like indirectly you have to. It's a psychological way how I could explain how things are, how the US debt works, because you should try to understand. if the US debt today is over $37 trillion, okay, we should try to asking ourselves, like, okay, if it's about $37 trillion, how is it going to be getting paid? Because whenever, the higher the US debt goes high, the higher the devaluation of the dollar goes. Technically, we should try to understand that. When I say technical, I mean that whenever the US debt goes high, it scares people like investors who will be like investing to the US, people who will be like using dollars for transaction. As the global economy looks at the US economy, it's kind of, I'm not saying the US economy is in its best shape, well as the rest of the world is in its best continuous situation. Like, it's still not, I have to say that the global economy is not in its best shape, and it has never been in its best shape since we are using ever since we started using the paper currency. Yeah, me and you have been losing our purchasing power for the last 25 years. So in simple terms, we should try to understand that there was debt. If there was debt cannot be solved, what's the next solution? And what should be seen as the savior for the rest of the world? Many were saying Bitcoin, the Chinese yuan. But we should try to understand the Chinese yuan is also a currency. And this is a currency that doesn't amplify as the US dollar, okay? It's highly controlled by the government of the Chinese yuan, because I have been seeing it getting implemented. I've seen Bitcoin getting implemented. But you have to understand, politicians don't like things that they don't control. Especially they don't like things like Bitcoin. Bitcoin would have been a better thing, but they hate things they cannot control. They have no command about. Bitcoin is kind of decentralized, and Bitcoin is something that would have been, I would say, fair money, because you cannot print it. And I have to say to you, our governments like spending money. And the main reason why you're losing your purchasing power, because governments today are spending more than they earn. That means they borrow more. That's why today yields are high as hell. For the US, yields are just heading high and high. UK yields, it's the same way. Europe, everywhere, it's the same way. Yields are getting higher. Apart from China, I don't know how China works it out, but China is kind of a fair. I mean, you cannot trust all the data you see everywhere anyway, you have to say, because also I personally don't trust the US data. If you look at the CPI, the consumer price index of today is running around, we should be saying around, it's heading for almost 2.9, 3.1. The Fed has a goal of 2%, okay? And that's their goal. But the way they look and the way it's looking, they are not likely to ever achieve that goal. Because we have to try to understand that today we are in a roller coaster that's not going to be stopping, that has no switch off, that has no look back. Otherwise, we have to be heading for a crash, in simple terms. We should try to understand that today the US government is facing a shutdown, okay? Which I'm not sure when is it going to end. Maybe by the end of this video, the shutdown will be done. But the question, who's getting affected at the end of the day, okay? Who's missing out? And Democrats and Republicans are trying to make it out to be acting like they're sorting out their relationship between each other, because I'm going to call it a relationship. Because if you look at the major issues that bring down a shutdown, the US shutdown in the first place, they are all caused by the government, by the politicians. I don't care whether you're Democrat or Republican. We should try to understand that anyone in the government likes spending, okay? Any government worldwide likes spending, and they have to spend, okay? And we should try to understand they will always spend more than they earn. See, human ego will never stop, because whatever they have to do, they'll have force to do it. It's important. We should try to understand that there is a way we are heading. There is a way we are seeing high gold prices. There is a way we are seeing government shutdowns. The economy is in its worst calling condition. It's making 99 calls, but nobody's likely to be answering. And the way politicians are playing it out, and this doesn't speak of only the US, but speaks about the global economy. Look at Europe. And they are trying to introduce what they call digital IDs. For example, the UK, they're implementing the digital IDs. It's all about control. But the funny thing, how they are implementing the control and how the economy is moving is kind of opposite side. It's looking just like in opposite angles. Like it's something that someone should try to understand. Like governments are after control. Governments are after seeing you like you're under their eye ladder. But in simple terms, they are not looking at the biggest issues concerning the economy. When I speak of the US economy, that means I am speaking of the global economy. Well, the rest is to be seen. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.